Hello, welcome to the Q&A Cafe. Here we are at the Georgetown Club in Georgetown. And to go put a timestamp, it's a beautiful spring day. And thank you for joining us here at the Georgetown Club, at home on TV, and every platform on which we air, which includes YouTube and streaming and on and on and on. You can't get rid of us. And very happy to welcome our guests, Jayne Sandman and Barbara Martin, the co-founders and co-CEOs of the Brand Guild. You are you're probably co-something else too, right? Do you co-sign all the checks?
We trust her enough.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, there you go. But what is, there are many wonderful things here to talk about, but one of them is that you are a DC-born organization. You started here, you built it here, you've expanded to New York, but DC is still your headquarters, in fact, Georgetown.
Yes.
But also what's wonderful, I was thinking about this yesterday, is how long we've three known each other. And it kind of goes to your origin story in a way, because I wonder if you knew each other when I met you, or if you met then too. Because I met you when you were at Capital File.
We would have known each other.
I don't remember where you and I first met.
I don't remember either.
Could have been when you are, I remember a party.
I think it was actually Jayne's engagement party. We sat next to each other on the roof of the Hay Adams.
That was a great event.
That was an awesome party.
Can I just say, not to be a cliche, but I associate you with great events.
That's wonderful.
But I'm going to go back further.
Yeah.
But I always have this standout party that's in my head that was for the opening.
It's a guild group.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that it was opening for Jonathan Adler. It was his husband.
Oh,
you had a
Simon's party.
Yes, you had a party for him.
Yeah.
And didn't it have a rose throne?
It did.
Yeah.
It had a rose wall, a carnation wall. And
Yeah.
it was like 50 interns, like their hands bleeding,
Yeah,
like
but
putting
that-
these little, and us on the floor, trying
Yeah.
to like thumbtack all of these like thousands of carnations to a wall.
Right. But those were early days, right?
Early.
Those were. The title of his book was Gay Men Don't Get Fat.
Yeah.
And it was
think it
over
was
the top
2010.
design. It was a wonderful night. Heavily themed, which we always love.
I miss his
to
column. That really personifies the before times. But let's go back even further, because it's a big leap to do the business that you are doing, and to see what it's grown into. And I wonder if it started. Did you know you were going to do this? How did it start? Was it organic? Did you do something? Did you do an event together just
We
by
met through a
chance?
nonprofit that we had founded. And so there were 5 of us that
What was
started
the nonprofit?
District Sample Sale.
Okay.
And Barb and I were the two that didn't know each other.
And you were at Capital File still then?
I might have been in Washington Life then. I think
Okay.
that was many moons
No,
ago.
you were Capital File.
I was already there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was at Nielsen. No, I had actually just started out on my own. I had left Nielsen and then
Okay,
was
so
kind of
you-
like taking on clients one by one.
All right. And so you did this event together.
which allowed us to work together and
Right.
understand each other's styles and not just know each other as friends. It was
Yeah.
an actual working relationship, even in a nonprofit setting.
And so out of that, did you say, let's do another event together? Or did something else come your way like that?
The next thing was Artefacto, which was a furniture opening. They were my client, and Capital File was the advertising partner.
Okay.
So we worked
you
together
kept
again.
getting thrown together.
Yep. And
We're
it was like,
choosing to work together.
Well, but I mean, events
Yeah.
were, circumstances were allowing that to happen.
Yep.
Yes.
Because I'm just very curious how.
And DC was very small then.
Yes.
So I think people that were doing interesting things in DC was a small enough group that we sort of all knew each other.
and then the
Right.
third thing was she got hired to do a party at Cafe Milano for Obama's first inauguration.
No small thing.
It was a celebrity
thing.
studded affair. It was really
Oh my gosh.
an amazing
It was like, oh,
event.
hey, Queen Nor. Oh, hey, J-Lo. It was amazing.
And you were just hired as Jayne Sandman to do it.
I was.
Yep.
for that one.
Okay.
Yep.
So she hired me to do the red carpet. So I did the press part and she did the everything else. And
So-
it worked.
How do two people formalize what you were doing?
Well, we dated professionally.
Yeah.
So we each had our own sort of, I wouldn't even call them companies at the time, but we were each solo practitioners at the time.
Right.
And the genesis of why I'd even gone out on my own was I didn't mean to start my own company.
Yeah.
I wanted to work for a certain kind of agency, and I kept interviewing and kept not finding it. And so that was really the genesis
And
of,
was the
okay,
same
let's...
thing happening to you? And
I was doing PR like one client at a time and all of a sudden had like a portfolio. So quit my day job, started doing this, and there were just parts of it that I couldn't do. It just that I didn't like doing. There's parts of it I absolutely loved, parts of it that were a weakness,
Yeah.
and they were all the things that Jayne was great at.
Yeah.
So we worked together a few times. We kind of realized that it was a perfect mix of what each other's
But
strengths
then you
were.
had to sit down and say, let's do this.
Yeah, but I think the trust was already there.
Yeah.
I think that was, and
But you had to come up with a name, right?
Yes.
And your first name was Brandling.
Yes.
Nope.
Well,
No?
there was several
Okay.
names, iterations before that, but the
Right.
first, I think,
Yeah.
what you're thinking of as a company today, the first iteration of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to
was
figure out what the path is two people take
Yep.
to arrive at where you are now, which is, I don't know, I was scrolling through your website and it just goes on and on, pages of employees. So you're very
16.
big.
Yeah.
So you're very big. And then you have other people who are just adjunct working for you. So, you know, you've grown into something very solid from this kind of...
It is, but the origin of why we got together in the first place, I think, still applies today. So to take 2 steps back, really what I was hoping for and what we were able to do together was bring different disciplines in-house. So this idea that you shouldn't have just a PR firm, you shouldn't have a separate marketing firm, and you shouldn't have someone else doing your social and someone else doing your branding.
And somebody else doing your events. And there's a lot of agencies that did those things really well. They could do one, and they could say they could do the other thing, but they didn't, because you can't be a PR person and a marketing person at the same time. If you are a PR person and an events person at the same time, something is going to take a priority. So you can't do both equally. So we started finding experts to run each of these teams.
Yeah.
Our next employee was Annie Parashika-Wood, who you know, she's our executive vice president of events.
12 years later.
Yep.
Yeah. And we've added, obviously, a lot of expertise since then. We have a whole digital marketing team now. We do a lot of brand strategy now. But all of those things came later when we found the right people to head those teams. So even though we've added on new offerings, it's always because we found the right person to do that for us. But
And because
that
clients
was-
asked for it.
Yes.
Like our creative team was literally a client sat us down. They're like, we can't hire another creative agency again. We need to hire you. You need to figure it out. You need to have a staff to do it. Can you do that now, please?
Didn't you
So we
find
did.
at the same time that what you were doing was also what the industry was doing generally, that there was more
Yes, because what clients were asking for. I think that's
pulling everything under
Yep.
one roof?
It is, but I would argue I think it's still something where it's very easy to say we have a new offering
Yeah.
and not back it up with the right team. And I think we always made sure that we had the right teams in place before we offered it.
Yeah.
Because we built this trust with our clients, so if we're going to offer them something new, we have to be an expert in that also.
Yep.
We've built up too much trust and equity.
What makes Washington a good town for this kind of work?
I mean,
Because I know
yeah.
you've branched out to New York, but Washington is really...
And a lot of our clients are on the West Coast now too. I mean, there's incredible retail, and the food system is doing incredible things on the West Coast. I mean, amazing companies are everywhere now, and startups are everywhere now, and that's very exciting. But I think DC has a conscious consumer that is a great test market for the rest of the country. I mean, we see a lot of, whether it's fast casual startups happening here, but I think there is a lot of people who are voting with their wallets in DC. And especially as we have moved into more purpose-driven brands, DC was an amazing place to cut our teeth in that.
Do you have to get a license to do your jobs? Do you have to formalize in some way with the DC government? I mean, you obviously
Yeah.
have
We're
to...
like a corporation in DC, but
And is
Yeah.
DC a good place to be doing that rather than if you had incorporated in Virginia or Maryland?
well, we're actually incorporated in Delaware.
You're in
but-
Delaware.
Which a lot of companies are.
Like a
Yeah.
yacht.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
a common
Yeah.
business tactic.
You know what? We love being in Georgetown. It is amazing for our teams that they can just like walk out of our door. We're at 31st and M.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And think about return
Yeah.
to office. I mean, we actually, this is
been
our
great.
first week back in the
Yeah,
office.
I know.
Our team loves being in Georgetown. They
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
the food options, the shopping options, the general atmosphere in
The happy
Georgetown
hour
is wonderful right
options,
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would
yeah.
not have been excited to go back to downtown DC.
Are many of your clients in Georgetown, or any of your clients in Georgetown?
You know,
Very few.
we've had clients that have had locations that have opened in Georgetown.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, and it's kind of fun to like walk down the street.
Yeah,
We're like, we
yeah.
opened that and that and that and that. But no, nobody's that's headquartered there right now.
Let's talk about the pandemic and how that affected you and business in general. I mean, whether it's marketing, PR, branding, all of it in some way involved people being together. And then you had to deal with people adjusting to not being together
Yes.
and yet stay afloat. Did you have to cut back your staff at all? Did you have to go for a
We
PPP?
didn't, no.
Did you?
And that was a
We
goal.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, we were very proud PPP recipients, but from day one, we said the goal is to retain every employee, and we did, but we
Yep.
also
and all their benefits, like that was the goal.
We have 7 versions of the budget. It got ugly for a while there. I mean, there were moments,
Yep.
I mean, March, April, May through June were the hardest 4 months professionally of our lives. We thought the
Yep.
thing that we had spent 10 years building was going
Was
gone.
get
to wipe away.
Taken down.
Yeah.
And every day it was like, but what happened was a lot of our clients, we became less like PR strategists for them, more just business strategists. It was like, how do we help them win the day? How do we help them survive the week? So they started
So
calling us
you
for that.
added another
'cause-
dimension to your
Yeah.
skill set.
and it worked.
Business
It worked.
advisors.
No, I mean, we had one client in particular who really wasn't, doing e-commerce yet, and our contract with them was for PR. It was very narrow, and we were a week into the pandemic, and we said to them, "You're not going to make it if you can't figure this out." And we just said, "Give us all your passwords. I don't care what our scope is. We're just going to help you."
Yep.
And we have them up and running online within a matter of days.
And it helped them. So we have a couple areas of specialty. We have a great real estate team. We have an F&B and spirits team, and we have a consumer lifestyle
When
team.
you say real estate, you don't mean you're also realtors, do you?
No, goodness. No, the short story is
But
that we
that
work with a
could
lot of
happen.
neighborhoods, a lot of which are in DC. So that's the Yards, the Wharf, City Ridge that's coming online, that are changing the city for the better. So we were able to, as the world was imploding, as F&B was on shaky footing there for a
and
while
still
because restaurants
kind of-
weren't open.
it still kind of is.
We were able to take on some pro bono clients and figure it out and move kind of people around so that as each of those areas, like as they started coming back online, our team was on sure footing. So we did a lot of that too in those first few months.
What trends did you learn during the pandemic? I mean, what did you see happening that hadn't been in your lives before, other than
I feel
being
like a
business
full-scale
advice?
shift toward direct-to-consumer clients.
Yep.
Yeah.
So things that you were normally and previously doing in person, now were happening direct-to-consumer. And especially thinking about that food and beverage team that we mentioned, how do you take that passion they all had for that category, but then shifting it out of the in real life space and towards a digital space?
And what do you see the trend being coming out of it? I think there's so much debate now about work from home, whether it lasts or doesn't last. And also the whole super spreader issue of big social events, which, why don't we take a moment and just talk about the Gridiron Dinner, since much of Washington talked about the Gridiron Dinner. You were there, were you there?
was not.
Your husband's involved, directly
Yes,
involved
I was at the
with
head table with him. I mean, half the head table
Yes.
came away with COVID. I thankfully did not.
So what's been the fallout from that in Washington and events in general? Was it?
Well, there's a lot of trepidation going into White House Correspondents' Dinner
But
as
what
well.
do you tell? Let's say you've got an event coming up and you're.
Say tonight.
And
Say- yeah.
so you do. You have a big, and we
do.
are going to talk about
Yes.
that. But what guidance do you give them if people are saying, "Oh my God, we're having people saying they can't come," and you
Well, so
know.
we're 25 months into events. So our events team did every pivot in the world during COVID. We did a lot of online events, we did hybrid events, we did all of that. Now that we're coming out of it, I mean, they have been at the forefront of safety the entire time. So we're still doing a lot of outdoor events as a result.
Yeah.
And when we do indoor events, yes, we lean on CDC guidance, but it also varies per market. So there are some cities that we're working in that don't have as strict COVID restrictions, and some, DC has always been on the conservative side about this. But even for tonight, we are requiring a test for
Okay,
tonight.
so tonight
Yep.
you have.
Proof of vaccination
Yep.
and a test,
Well, it's
24 hours.
News Bash.
Yes.
News Bash. News Bash started when, and what is it?
Started in 2010, and
Okay,
it is.
Gosh, it's 10 years old, 11 years old, right?
And it is one night a year, like every news anchor in DC all come together, every female news anchor, and it's a celebration to raise funds and awareness for breast cancer charities. We look for charities that are DC based that help underserved women. So it's whether it's funding mammograms, getting just whatever services they need. So our charity tonight is Breast Care for Washington, which gives women testing, diagnoses, and care regardless of their ability to pay.
And how many people are you expecting?
150, I'd say.
And do you ask for a vax proof to be sent in before they come, or is it fine at the door?
If they have it at the door, that's
Yeah.
fine. We
Because I've
request-
had
we
to
request it in
experience
advance.
both.
It's more seamless of an experience if it's done in advance. That way
Yep.
they can just walk in, they're
Yeah,
already pre-approved.
yeah.
But we did add the extra layer of asking for tests for this
Yeah,
event, in part
yeah.
because there will be immune-compromised guests
Yeah.
by nature
Yeah.
of people that are going through treatment right now.
I imagine they'll take a moment tonight to remember Wendy Rieger.
Yes, of course.
She was probably part of the group.
She was a friend of the group.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are you going to do? Do you know? I'm sure you know, but you won't be spoiling it because
the night is a lot of news anchors up there, talking about breast cancer and about their friendship. So there will be a lot of talk of Wendy tonight. We will have a moment of silence for her as well, but I think she's just going to be part of the conversation throughout the night as well.
Yeah. And it's also a reminder of the importance of news, quite frankly, in all levels.
Yeah.
And so much of this event is not only the funds that we raise, but also the awareness. We have some really incredible, heartwarming stories of women who have seen coverage of NewsBash, of breast care for Washington, and as a result, got a mammogram that literally saved their lives.
Yep.
So I think there's the awareness factor in this is tremendous as well. And especially during COVID, this is 2 years now. I'll say to everybody in this room, a lot of people skip mammograms the last 2 years. Go get a mammogram.
Oh my
you can't
God.
skip that.
I was diagnosed with early stage cancer due to a mammogram, and it wouldn't have showed up in a physical exam.
Same.
It was
I was the same
cellular,
thing.
and it was the mammogram, and I'm always preaching to my friends.
Yep.
I know it's painful, though it's getting less painful, and just do it.
The
I
alternative is
I
worse.
feel the same way
Yep.
about colonoscopies. It's amazing technology. It's changed lives. of
Technology,
so many-
if you go and you do it.
Well, if you don't go, it's.
And to go full circle on your earlier question, trends during COVID, oversharing is a great trend that's happened during COVID as well. I mean, I think we all talk about things.
Dressing down and
whether
oversharing.
Yes, whether it is physical health or mental health. I think a big part of our success during the pandemic is that we had an incredible HR team, and hopefully coming from us as well as leaders of a company, where we cared so much and so much attention was paid to our team's physical health, mental health, all of the above. Your team is not going to succeed if they can't bring their full selves to work, share whatever is going on in their lives. I mean, people had very different issues in our team throughout these 2 years, and our ability to support them is why we have done so well.
I mean, there were junior people that had all of a sudden were living in an apartment by themselves that just couldn't socialize.
Well,
there were married people that were
and
home with like their 3 children. Like it was such a diverse array of issues and problems.
I was very sensitive about that because I work in an office with lots of ages, and I live in a house. I live in Georgetown. I didn't feel isolated, but I live with young people I work with young people who were in apartments. They got dogs, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I watched all of us get very comfortable with Zoom and very comfortable with working from home and dressing from the waist up.
Yep.
And remembering when you get up and walk away from the Zoom that your full body can be. I didn't have any experiences like that, but they happen. But I wonder, we don't know what we're going to be like yet because we're still coming out of it. And we don't know what events are going to be like. We don't know what, I think everybody wants to go back to be in these crowded ballrooms, but then they're there and they go, I don't know if I want to be here.
But our definition of that is also expanded. I mean, I feel like for us, we think of it as whether it's an activation, whether it's something experiential, or whether it's an event. There is a stickiness and a loyalty that happens in person that simply is not happening online. Like I was reading a stat recently that in person is 4 times more likely to turn somebody into a loyal customer. So there is something special that happens there. Yeah. So ideally, it's how are we doing both? Even if we find you online, what are conversion techniques later on that are in real life? We took mailings to a whole new level, during COVID. That was how you got in front of someone. That was how you got into their home. So I think there's a different version of maybe it's not 5,000
Did you get into
people
TikTok?
in a
Are you
ballroom.
TikTok experts now?
You have to get into everything. You have to hire people that are into everything. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The
And that
pendulum was
our connection.
all in person too, though, and then we had to go all virtual, and now it really is that hybrid. So
It
you're
is a
getting
hybrid.
people that,
Absolutely.
the introverts of the world, the opportunity that maybe don't want to go to an event. We're really thinking, really thoroughly about like what is the thing that we're doing for them too. And it used to be like your online version of it was like, what's our hashtag? And that was the end of the thought process. And now it is so much more. So I think you're also expanding it and giving a lot more people a lot more opportunities to participate.
What made you decide to open an office in New York?
We were spending basically a salary on Amtrak.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were just
There's
there
a reality
all the
of a
time.
lot of media being
Yeah.
centered there,
Yeah.
a lot of clients being based there.
Yeah.
And then there is this, perception that if you're not in New York, you can't be a true
Do you have the
national
corporate
firm.
apartment yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's coming. We're there enough.
Yeah.
So do you feel that between the two of you, that you learn how to delegate to your staff, and you both can't be in all these places at the same time. How do you work that out between the two of you, or is it now just totally innate, and you know you do this, you do that?
I think it's pretty innate now.
What are your strong suits versus what do you go, well, no, Jayne handles that, or, I mean...
People.
People,
Books.
okay. What, books?
The books. Like,
books.
I
Those are
would do
huge
payroll to the
skills,
cows
though.
come home. Like, I love building budgets. I love doing all of that. And Jayne can build a Venn diagram to get to anyone and
You don't
do
bang
anything.
into each other.
No,
right?
it's nice. I think it's why it works. I think if you're going to have a partnership or more people than two even, all the
Yeah.
more reason everyone has to have lanes. Like you're always playing backup and understudy for things. I think we're both dangerous enough in each other's skill sets that we can support each other and we can actually take breaks and step away when we need to.
Do you ever fight?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. Of course we do. Yep.
But it's healthy.
We're good at fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's better at fighting than I am. But yeah.
How do the fights usually end?
It comes from
Hopefully the takeaway, I was going to say, is the goal is the same. The goal is a successful company.
Yeah,
The
and the goal is
is
honesty,
yeah.
because like we can't spend this much time and work this hard and be in a room together this much, without just total honesty.
you
And
don't
that means
take
that when something's annoying you, you have to
vacations
tell the other person.
We do. We just
You
do.
do? You just took a
Yeah.
vacation?
We were to
Where'd
Mexico together.
Yep.
Where'd you go?
Mexico.
Mexico?
Yep.
Yeah.
With our husbands.
How was travel?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. It was our first kid-free trip
Yep.
in 2 years, and it was just a
was
different
so
kind
great.
of rest and relaxation. I mean,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Speaking of New York, you were recently at lunch in New York with Kim Kardashian.
Yes.
And Anna
Wearing this
Wintour.
exact outfit, actually. That's my
Where-
one good suit. If you enjoy it.
So, what was the event? And there weren't too many people there, I could tell, because I saw the pictures
36.
on Instagram, looked very intimate. So what were your takeaways of being with this person who so many people see, hear about, talk about, don't know anything about? A lot of people don't know anything about her except that she exists. And tell us about it.
I was really impressed by her. I am not a reality TV fan as a person, so I sort of came to her late in life, I guess. I'm fascinated by Skims as a business. I am fascinated that she is studying to be an attorney. I think she is arguably a pop culture genius. She has been able to tap into the zeitgeist time and time again.
But did she seem real?
Yes. Kids a lot, about her family a lot.
I mean, she had a glam squad of a dozen people whose
yeah.
job was to make sure she looked really good in that 6-foot walk up to the little stage.
But she glows.
But yeah,
Her skin's
she glows.
amazing.
Yeah, well, if you have that many people attending to it, I would hope
Yeah.
so. And, and Anna, did you get quality time with Anna?
She kind of like circulated.
This was
through
her
the room.
lunch,
Yeah, it was
right?
36
It
people,
was,
so she kind of
yes.
just like went person to person and like had a few words with everybody.
Yeah.
But nothing deep with anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take it.
But she, to me as well, though, I mean, now that she's head of Conde as well,
Right.
globally,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
she
amazing.
is
What was the occasion? Why were you invited?
It was the Kim cover celebration. It was
of the
just
March issue.
yeah, a friend
And
of
it
ours.
was Vogue's
yeah.
first event back as well,
Yeah.
which was also
Yeah.
a big deal. People, again, it was that excitement of being in any room, let alone
Will you
the Vogue
do you think
closet.
you'll get on the list for the Met Gala?
One can only hope.
Yeah. Sure, could happen.
I was amused that after last year, I guess, or whatever what the last one was. I'm never sure anymore because they all seem space age to me, like they're trying to be cosmic. But that this one's going to be Bridgerton and the Gilded Age.
And Gilded, I mean,
Yes.
we're the
Yeah,
Brand Guild.
yeah.
Just saying, but yes.
I mean, I love it. Speaking of pop culture, are you watching these startup failure shows like We Crashed
Crashed.
and Super Pumped and The Dropout? And you must watch them with a particularly expert eye.
Well, we worked with
worked with
WeWork
WeWork.
for years.
Okay,
Yeah.
We
so
were a
tell
part of
us-
that. We lived a
Tell
lot
us
of that.
what you knew and when you knew it.
A lot and no.
We were gonna
I
talk
mean,
about everything.
I
Remember?
think, listen, I think
She's the people person.
Yeah.
We'll let you
I
go.
will say this. You can say so many things about Adam Newman. We've been in lots of small rooms with him. We've done lots of events and lots of marketing and PR.
Is he
for
portrayed
WeWork.
accurately, do you think?
It's very easy to make a caricature out of
Yeah.
him. I think some of the more extreme things I never saw firsthand,
Yeah.
but I saw him command a room of people and of his own team, people were following him.
That
And
dynamic personality.
absolutely.
He would
And
have an idea, an entire company would just run with it.
I've never
in
seen a
an
company
hour.
that big
Yep.
move that quickly. It is truly, it was an impressive thing to be a part of.
Yep.
It felt like it was lightning in a bottle. And I think he deserves credit for having built a $3 billion company. Ultimately, it was not a $40 billion company, but that doesn't take away from the value that he actually created in that short of a time frame.
Did you have the sense when you were working with him that it was a cult or a movement?
A movement for sure,
yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. I mean,
Yep.
they were selling an idea of what work and life should be. They were not selling office space. We all know that co-working space has been around since the dawn of time. That wasn't a new idea.
It was the way they did it.
Yes, it was how they did it.
Do you think it's a fair representation of Rebecca Newman? Because it's,
I don't
it's
know.
fair.
We didn't know her.
Yeah, so I think
Because
that's-
it's fairly harsh, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've gone back and I've done a lot of reading about her, and I've listened to a podcast with her, and I think Anne Hathaway has the voice down.
Yep.
And a
Yep.
lot of this, again, use the word cosmic. She's very cosmic,
Yes.
very centered.
Well, and I'm also sensitive to the woman getting blamed, I'll be honest.
Well,
so
no,
I think
and that-
you
and that
mentioned
happens
there's
in it.
Every
the
show's have a
female startup
villain.
takedown is very real right now, and
Yeah.
you wonder whether it's, Outdoor Voices and a lot of these companies, if the takedown would have looked the same if it was a male founder.
Yeah. Well, you look at Super Pump though, and Travis Kalanick. Now, I've never.
I've
Well, I
not
met
seen
him
that one.
Yeah.
once,
Yeah.
but I interviewed him once on the phone for a long time, and I don't know. He seemed. It was at the beginning when they were coming to Washington, and he was a dreamer and a big talker. But I didn't know anything more about him than that. That all comes later. But there isn't a woman getting blamed in that one. It's all he's
So
his
it's
own
the
worst
one.
enemy.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
But
But again, there's a genius that comes with that level of entrepreneurship, and there's a downside of that genius. You have to believe that you can do something that no one else has done before. You need to believe that the 1,000 people that told you that you were wrong, are not on the right side of history.
Yeah.
And a lot comes with
But
that.
don't you feel that the venture capitalists come across as enablers?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's
You know,
that is the lesson of
I
WeWork,
mean,
by the way. The lesson of
in
WeWork is the
in
VC
a dangerous
firms.
way, though,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
they're so excited. And in the Elizabeth Holmes case, it was these people like Henry Kissinger and George Shultz who were so enthralled with apparently having this
Yes.
super dynamic young blonde woman coming to them for guidance and advice.
Well, but the obvious red flag, obviously in retrospect, of Elizabeth Holmes is that she had no seasoned investors. These were not people who did any
but it's
due
crazy
diligence.
that it happened.
It is. In real time, no one was figuring this out, or not enough people were.
Yeah.
And that's almost a different, I think, case study. Whereas I think in general, I think VC dollars are being looked at with a much closer eye. VC is not the right path for every company. You are
Yeah.
being forced to have a return on investment that is very extreme. Only
Is that a
certain
COVID
kinds of company.
development?
That is
No,
a
it's
state of
pre-COVID.
money and lending in the
Yeah.
world, and
Yeah.
the realization, I think, that a lot of brands, I think, were buried because of VC investments.
Yeah.
Do you work a lot with what we call Silicon Valley
Yes,
companies?
about half of our clients are venture backed.
And do you find the culture has changed at all over the last, say, 10 years, 5 years?
No,
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 okay, yeah.
it's a rabid
Still
thirst for
grassy and
growth.
bold and
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And a lot of amazing things come out of that. A lot of scientific breakthroughs come out of that. A lot of our favorite products come out of that.
A lot
And
of
do-
ideas that fall flat come out of that. I
right.
mean,
And so
it's all of
is it part of your job to deliver bad news, or to deliver the advice that your idea is not a good one, you should do it this way instead?
Our job is to be honest. And sometimes that is, this isn't a great idea, but here's how we're going to make it better. So we just, you have to be careful how you deliver that message, but our job is to be honest. If we're not honest, it will
Do
bite
you
us in the butt
ever
every
walk
time.
away from clients? Do you ever walk?
Oh yes,
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things
Yeah.
that we, I think, are honestly best at is also picking the right clients in the first place.
Yeah.
Because we can't have conflict. So if we're going to work with someone in a certain space,
Yeah.
I want to work with whoever is best in that space and most likely to succeed.
And when we were first starting out, one of the first things we did was we fired a client when we were like at contract phase. We walked away, and it was like we were just starting out. We really needed the money. It was a client that on paper was really exciting, and they were horrible. And we were like, nope, there is not a price.
And you don't regret it.
It was the best lesson we ever could have learned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our employees let us for it because they had seen the madness too, and they were like, "Oh God, is this the next year of our life? We're going to work with someone like this."
Yeah.
I'm not saying a client has ever fired you, but if they have, how do you deal with that? Do you just move on?
No, it's hard. We do postmortems on everything, whether
Yeah.
it's a natural wrapping
So
up
it
of
has
something
happened that somebody
Oh,
is.
and a lot of our
course,
clients
yeah.
do, like they will get sold. I mean, we're talking about businesses that a lot of them are founder based, and then all of a sudden, like they will go into a different phase, and that phase may not, need all the things that we have. They may have it in house because now they're working for a much bigger company. Like those things happen too. There is a level of evolution that is, unavoidable sometimes.
We all learn from our mistakes, as we know. And have you had disasters or near disasters? Have you had events that have gone wrong? Have you had events that just nearly
things have gone
made
wrong,
it?
sure, but I think the ability to think on your feet and make the best of it in the moment is what it's all about. A million things go wrong at every event.
I mean,
that's,
but can
that's
you
the
think
nature
of,
of it.
Can you think of one that you've turned around as it's happening?
God, I feel like I should be able to. There must
I
be.
mean, when we first started out, we had a client and we at an event that you were actually at, and we crushed it. It was the best event in GC, and they were like, "Hey, this event was awesome. Can you do this for us in Philly and Austin next week?" And we were like, "Totally." I had no idea. We didn't know anybody in either city, but we figured it out. Like little by little, we just kind of sat
But
down.
it was down to the wire. On those.
It was
I mean, it was
really down to the wire. We were just like calling friends of friends and just figuring it out. But we did.
And you do all that while running families and having little children and everything.
Mine are less little now, but yeah.
Yeah. How old are your children?
I have one that's about to go to college. He's going to Virginia Tech in the fall. And then I have a 13-year-old son who's going to high school.
And you have like
7 and 11.
not to dismiss your children, but I think that
They're old, they're fine.
No, but I think that the age group of Jayne's children have been among the most directly affected by the pandemic.
Yes.
And very formative and very
I had
formative
a
years.
5-year-old kindergarten who had to take kindergarten on Zoom.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Who was
awful.
a very social kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can find a silver lining in almost anything. There was no silver lining in virtual school.
Yeah.
How many of your clients are do you break them down into areas? Like, it seems to me you have a lot of restaurants and food and beverage and hospitality.
We have like food brands and spirits brands, less like the one-off
whiskey,
restaurants.
what did you get? You are the
Uncle
PR
Nearest.
agency of the year
For Whiskey Magazine.
for Whiskey Magazine. So
That's
I'm sorry
great.
that I don't have a glass here for us to
That's afterwards.
to knock
That's
back,
afterwards.
but that's pretty cool.
That was a huge win.
Yeah.
I also love your I don't know if this is your motto or your motto for last year, live, play, work.
Oh.
Did
that
you
was-
ever see Pose?
So live, work, play. Yeah.
Pose.
Live, work, play is like the thing that every neighborhood goes out with. Like, this is the place where you can do all three. And that's because they're all building retail on the ground floor, residential on top. So that was the question for us during COVID. Like, is that order still true? Did it change? So we commissioned a survey and just had our strategy team do a big study into it. And it turns out now it's live, play, work.
So
Is the
how
order
is
of
that?
preference.
How is that going for the restaurant business? Do you think?
Restaurants have had probably the hardest time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the last few years, and even the ones that did an
They were the
amazing
most
job
fragile
at pivoting.
of that, yeah.
Yeah, so even you're seeing a restaurant renaissance in DC right now, but it's a lot of larger, out of town chains and venture-backed restaurants, a new thing as well. Versus no, I mean, I think the local businesses took a beating for 2 years. They were not meant to survive with that little revenue for that long. So it's really a testament to those that thrived. And even with all the pivots to delivery and takeout, like that's not how their business is meant to work.
Yeah.
That's a totally different business model. So my hat's off to everyone that was able to make it through. And I think as much as possible, we try to support them personally and professionally. I think my first time back in a restaurant, I was like, oh God, I forgot how much I missed this. Like there is something amazing that happens when you're sitting across from your friend or your partner and you have that chance to just relax into that incredible experience they've created for you.
When restaurants come to you now in this almost post-pandemic era, what are they asking you for? What's the most important question you feel your clients are coming to you with? Restaurants, but even others, are they?
I think for all of them, it's differentiation. So one thing we did add during COVID was a research insights team, so that we're able to actually dive into the data and figure out like how differentiated is a client. Like what is their white space? What are they doing that nobody else is doing?
Or
because
what can
there's
they
so
do?
much same out there.
Well, let's think of a hypothetical, because I'm really curious, because it was interesting to read your website and the way you approach a client. let's say a person comes in, let's say I come in and I'm like, the pandemic taught me that I really don't want to do what I'm doing. I want to do something else instead. I think I want to open a shop. And I've got the money to get it started, but I don't know what I should sell. Somebody could come to you with that, right? For the direction of what?
They're usually coming to us a step past that. I think the types of clients...
But are you going to be able to tell them? It sounds to me like you've got the capability to sit down and research what's going to sell now. Don't you think? I mean, that you would attack it and figure it out.
Yeah.
And that you would be able to tell them what's a good location.
I mean, in the hypothetical, we could do all of those things.
You can do all of this.
Yes.
And then once you've helped me, I guess, figure out where I'm going to have my shop and what I'm going to sell and what people want, and to the degree to which I also have to be online as well as brick and mortar.
And then it's what you're messaging and how are you getting that out, who are you telling that to.
You're going to help me roll out, you're going to help me have my opening night party, you're going to help me build my website.
JLo's 100% coming to your opening.
Yes, and I think a lot of what you're describing, even in the reverse order. I mean, your online digital presence would almost be where you start these days as well. And figuring out that messaging as well. Like, what are you trying to say? And I think as we've really leaned into purpose-driven brands, that gave our team, I think, a large motivation, I think, especially during the pandemic, that we were helping, the good ones win. And I think that's something else where, especially for someone that's new, having that built into your DNA and not trying to sort of slap a purpose on afterwards, I think is incredibly important. Like, how are you building a company from the ground up that you're proud of, that you believe in, and that people have, I think a community around it is really what it is. Are people attached to this for more than a product? Because that person will be, I think, a better customer to you in the end.
How do you charge people, since you handle the books?
I mean,
is there a base rate for what you do, or is it like a menu and everybody's billed differently?
I mean, yes, because it depends on what services they want, what people we need to put on that team, what those people cost us, because now, I mean, we have a 60-person team, and our job is to make sure that they don't have too much work, they have the right amount of work, so that they can spend the right amount of time on the right clients, and that those clients are engaging for them. So putting all those things together, it's pretty easy to come up with what that price is going to be. It's like, okay, if you're going to be 20% of somebody's workload, and this is what that team looks like, and you need 3 of those teams, there's your price.
Are there people who keep you on retainer?
That's the majority of our clients.
That's
90% of our clients are retainer.
That's like. And your staff is largely women. Is that by design, or is it the nature of the business?
No, I mean,
we've always hired the best people for the job.
Yes.
And But
I will say, you have to be a feminist to work for us.
Okay, well, you can be
Whether you're a man or a woman, you
you
have to be a feminist.
And to get hired by you now, I notice you have a few jobs open. I think that's accurate.
We are growing.
You're looking for like 5 or 6 major positions.
I think it's 6.
And maybe somebody in this audience is interested, or somebody watching.
Talk about that, yes.
But what's kind of the base of what you're looking for in an employee for this kind of?
I mean, I can talk about our core values. So our core
talk.
values, and this is a huge part of our hiring process as well, is head, heart, and hustle. So head is being smart, but more than being smart, it's being curious, because our industry is evolving all the time. Are you going to be on top of trends? And are you curious about what your clients are doing too? I mean, a lot of what you have to do is go an expert in a totally new topic on a given day.
And you observe it just in the world about like pop culture. Are you reading every day? What are you reading every day? Like all of those things like kind of infuse the person that you are.
And then heart is you have to care, not only about your coworkers. We have a very sort of ego-free internal culture. And so a lot of that is supporting your coworkers, but also heart is caring more with the clients.
How can you show that in a job interview, though?
We ask a lot of questions, tell me about a time when, and I think that's a great way to get at not what they think they're supposed to say, but they're forced to think about if they've actually done that or not.
Yeah.
And the third thing is hustle, and that's an easy one to sniff out.
Yeah.
Which is like you just have to be willing to like do the thing to achieve your client's goals. Like it just there's a work ethic that you just can't fake. And a good question we'll ask people like, what was your very first job for money?
Yep.
Like did you start babysitting when you were 12? Yep. Did you work retail? Did you wait tables? Like any of those things? I'm like, yes, come on.
Could a person come in and apply for a job with you and potentially get hired who just has a passion, but maybe not the experience? Or are you at the stage in your growth where you need people who are already kind of where you're at.
I mean, a vice
junior
president,
person,
no,
yeah.
but an assistant level person, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they have. I mean, all of their resumes are exactly the same.
And we've
They've had
a
some
few-
internships.
yeah.
They've had, maybe a summer job, but besides that, it's just you have those other qualities.
Right. What do you think of Glassdoor? Do you think it's fair?
It feels like Yelp for offices.
Yeah,
and
but you have nice things in there.
Oh,
I
we
know.
do. I think it's always the people who are, and this is true of Yelp too, it's people who are the least happy and the most happy are the ones who are going to say something.
Right.
So it feels more polarizing than it actually is in reality in both cases.
Yeah, it is kind of weird when it started though, and you realized you're. Fortunately, I closed Nathan's before that happened because I just think I would have lived
Taken it
with,
so personally.
Yeah, I know. So we've talked about COVID and that impact, but now we don't know if we're in a recession or not. We're told we might be, and we know the economy and inflation are pretty bad. I mean, are you feeling that at all? Are you worried about that?
I mean, sure. I mean, everyone's worried about the economy a little bit, but I think.
But do you think coming out of the pandemic and getting back on your feet or getting stable, that you see some ill winds still ahead?
I think it's how we relate to our clients and how we're supporting them, and if that needs to change, I think is the question mark.
Yeah.
I think overall we have, fingers crossed, survived the worst thing that we will have to survive.
And everybody
as a
wants to
company.
get back to business.
And we show that we can
really
be
do,
flexible and
which
we
does
can
not
help our
make
clients.
a recession
Yep.
impossible.
Yeah.
But consumer confidence is also a huge part of what dictates how our clients are going to do. Even more than reality is consumer confidence. Are people still spending money or not?
Yep.
Which is sometimes attached from reality.
And because we're so picky about our clients, we really do feel like we have the best in class in each of our areas of specialty. So I think that helps too, because if somebody's going to be a victor.
Does your calendar feel full?
Yes.
coming up?
Very.
I mean, you're probably already planning the fall, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And we know you've got the news bash tonight, but what's your next big thing, if you can talk about it? If you can't talk about it?
Can I talk about the garden party?
Yes, oh, of course.
So tomorrow I'm going to train in New York for a couple days, but on May 1st, I think I've told you about this. Long story, but during COVID, I kind of hijacked the back corner of a national park and started taking over a fountain back there in honor of a friend of mine who had cancer.
Right.
The way to cheer her up, she worked for the National Park Service for her whole career and for the U.S. Geological Survey. So I just filled it with flowers while she was in chemo to be like, hey, aren't
This
they pretty
is so
today?
good.
Just to entertain her.
Yeah.
So she passed away in July of 2020, and at that point I decided to make a bigger deal of it. So I named it Beeler Fountain for my friend Stephanie Beeler. You can't name things in national parks, but they can't stop you from nicknaming them. So to date, we have raised $60,000 to take care of the fountain itself, and then there's gardens around it that were just overgrown in vines and disgusting. So on May 1st, we're doing something called the Magic Garden Flower Bloom. Jayne is helping, a few of our other friends are as well. And we are basically filling that whole back of the park with crocheted flowers. So I learned to crochet in January. Currently crocheting my fingers to the bone. So we have about 1,000 flowers that will go out there. There's a brunch in the morning. The attire is 70s garden chic, because crochet, it's very 70s. And then from 1 to 6, the public can come and it's free, and you can pick a flower in exchange for a donation to the park.
Marvelous. Do you have a website?
It's glenecopark.org/flower bloom.
Right. And there's always brandguild.org, right? Thebrandguild.org?
Thebrandguild.com.
Well, yeah.
We are not.
.com.
We are for profit.
You're a com, not an org.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. It's gone fast. Our time is up. Thank you both. I know you're having a
best.
very busy day, but it's great to check in with you and hear what you're doing. I adore you both. And thank
adore
all of
you.
you for being here. And join us next time. Our next guest is Bob Woodward. Thank you.